We got space on that though.
Yeah, I've got loads, man. I delete every time, so
nice.
it never fills up.
Right leg first.
Because once I move it onto the
Twister.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Hang on, wait. So you know the clap? Is that why they do that thing with the shutters?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yep.
you know exactly where to match the audio with the visual because they're two separate
Ah,
files.
it makes sense.
And it does now. It's like you see it a million times, and you're like, why are they doing that?
Max here with another episode of the Hear2Listen podcast. I'm joined by Leon,
Hello.
Jack,
Hello.
and Adam.
Hello.
I think we did mention actually on the last podcast that we was getting bored of each other's voices, wasn't we? Mine mainly, but I think we started to look at some guests and sort of say we need to get somebody else on and other people mixing in and out. And I'm glad to announce today we have got an awesome guest lined up for today's podcast. She is on the line now. For those of you that don't know, Hannah Ingram-Moore, it is daughter of Sir Tom Moore now, after the weekend just gone. So, Hannah, how are you doing today?
Yeah, we're doing all right. Thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you and all your listeners today. Well, it's another crazy day in Captain Tomland. We're on, I think, the 6th interview today. And we've had TV crews and film crews, and that is our new normal. But we have embraced it because we felt that we as a family have connected with other families and the public around the world. And whilst it has been an amazing journey, it's also been one that's pulled us closer together as a family. But it's been an awful lot of hard work too. And we've never shied away from that being the case. We've received 7,500 gifts, and the gifts keep coming. And of course, every single one of those gifts is sent with love. There's no question about it. But it's just us as a family who are onboarding all of that to our house. We've received 150,000 letters, and they come in around 100 a day. We still receive about 1,000 emails a day across. We have a media agency that copes now with any media request, but still comes into info@Captain Tom, and directly to me and to the PR agency about 1,000 emails a day. We had about 180,000 birthday cards that many were at Bedford School that you might have seen. They're now stored in a warehouse in London waiting for us to do something with them, because as a family we felt we couldn't recycle the love and the generosity that was sent from around the world. And also, and this is a really nice stat I think for your listeners, is that people from 163 countries donated to the original fund. And here's a question out there for your listeners. Do you know how many countries there are in the world? About 195, give or take the ones that China claims are not. And so we'll leave that one for them. But you think that 100 people from 163 countries invested in Tom's story.
Yeah.
And
Did you say 180,000 cards was received?
Yes.
That's unbelievable.
That's incredible,
That's
isn't it?
a lot of cards, and they're
It's a lot of
stored in a
cards.
warehouse at the moment.
Waiting to do something marvelous.
Yeah.
So I'll give you a little fill in. And you think that those cards came from around the world.
Yeah.
It's not like they just came from Bedford. People connected with him and his positivity from every corner of the planet. Think about it. There aren't many countries that didn't connect in some way
No.
with the story.
Well,
So
on that was part of the reason why, and I'm going to be honest with you, Hannah, I was really, 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 really nervous, not initially knowing that we was going to be getting you on as a guest, but after hearing some of those stats that you reeled out, and that's one of them with the birthday cards and the amount of countries that have got involved. Now, when anybody talks about that many numbers, for me, that's huge. It's just huge to anybody. And then when you hear that out loud, and it is for us to take in, I can't really. It's just I can't even imagine what that would be like. So how has that been like? Just to know that many countries, that much support, all the different age gaps that are amongst those numbers as well.
it's I don't think anyone could ever prepare you for it, right? We are just an ordinary family doing ordinary things, just like everybody else. There's not an extraordinary bone in our bodies. We just set out to do something fun we genuinely did. You know, we have our own business, and we've never talked about some of this stuff because people don't need to hear it. But we have our own business. There's nobody there saying, "Don't worry." When lockdown happened, and our entire pipeline of customers disappeared overnight, and there's nobody saying to us, "Don't worry, we got you." It's my husband and me, and we have 12 employees, so and a house and 2 kids and my father, and so we sat there just like everybody else, thinking, we don't know what this means. We have no idea if it will recover, when it will recover, what does our future look like? Will we be able to sustain the way that we live and the way that we keep us as a family together? We have no idea. We had fear just like everybody else. Yeah. And we sat around that table that Sunday when it was the first sort of warm Sunday, and my father came out trying to rehabilitate. And we just looked at each other and we said, should we do something fun that might, and let's share it. It all tumbled out in a conversation between us. It wasn't that there was a step by step. It was, I think my husband said, Tom, we'll give you £1 a lap, do 100. And I went, oh, do it before you're 100. Wow, that's so cool. and then it rolled and it rolled. And I said, you know what, we'll do a little press release, because I think people would think this is fun and nice, and it might just make them feel a bit happy. And why don't we try and we'll put 100 in, and we'll see if we can get another 900. And that's that's what it was.
Just another 900, 40 million later.
Total was 39.8 million, including gift aid. And now we've set up the foundation, so money is already now coming into the Captain Tom Foundation. So all in, I actually don't know anymore. 17 weeks, is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I've lost count. I've lost count.
I don't even know what the regulations are anymore. We just put masks on and we leave, and we come back. We don't really go very far, so we just.
Well, this is our bubble. This is
our bubble.
Our organisation is very much family friends. It's a family. It's
a family.
And this has had to be our bubble, and this will be our bubble, and until, like you say, new guidelines are put out there and stuff. But it's strange times for everybody, and a lot of uncertainty. As you said, no one really knew what was going on, and I think a lot of people have lost the ability just to keep up with everything at the moment, because there was so much change, wasn't there?
That's right, and continues to be, I think. And I think what Tom was able to do was connect with people, and he's naturally positive. He was in his 50s before my sister and I were born, and so had already had a really busy life. And we didn't look at him and think he was old. Kids don't, do they? You just accept. And so we were brought up by someone who's really probably could easily have been our grandfather. And so what he brought to our lives was something a little bit different, something from times past, as well as being very current. And what that gives you is that the benefit of that knowledge at 100 years old, it's so meaningful for people, because he's not that he's ramming it down anyone's throats. He's just saying, look, my whole life I've got to where I've got to today through adversity, disenchantment, difficult times, by being positive and looking forward and believing in humanity, and believing that most people are just thoroughly good, and do the best you can do. Get up, whenever we fell over, get up, get on with it.
Resilience.
Put your best, resilience. And very much we're responsible for ourselves. Don't look to anyone else to make you happy or to fix your problems. Be responsible for yourself. You've got one life, live it well. And I think that comes out from someone who's 100 is more meaningful than you saying it or me saying it.
Yeah, I've tried saying something similar to that. I'm not going to lie to my children. It's like, you've got to make yourself happy. I'm talking about my son at the moment, and he's only 12 at the moment, but started to sort of come across, the teenage problems. As time goes on, the younger children sort of to advance and become older before their time, because I do think that's mainly to do with what they've got access to social media. They can access so much other stuff. They're growing up before they need to in some ways. I said, you can't, you've got to make yourself happy. And if he's saying it's because of so-and-so and so-and-so, you get away from those people. If they're not making you happy, you need to think about what makes you happy. And sometimes that might be moving away from toxic people or something. But do you know what? You've got one life. But again, because I'm his dad, he just looks at me and he's like, whatever, Dad.
Yeah. Well, it coming from, your own parent, you kind of think, there's a big roll of the eyes, isn't there?
Yeah.
But I think if you think of my children, so Georgia, who's about to be 12, has only ever known living in an environment where her grandfather's there. And the first time I honestly saw that his influence had been so impactful was exactly that, when at school I picked her up from an event, and a sporting event, and she said to me, I said, "Oh, how did it go? You know, which group did you play with today?" And she said, "I made my own group, Mum, because I didn't want to be with that group. I didn't think they were good for me." And at 11, I thought, okay, so it's resilience, isn't it? It's building in confidence to say, that's not good for me, and I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to follow the path of positivity and do the right thing, not be taken down another path. And that's what we have to instill in our children, that, you know, to be happy with their own views and to be positive and stand their ground.
It's one of the things I think that we focus on as a company, because of our delivery of the NCS program, is very much in keeping with Tom's efforts around social action, essentially, you know, doing good in your community. And one of the things that I'm particularly interested in, because I was a youth worker in my previous role, and a lot of the issues that some of the young people struggled with around anxiety and depression was because of a lack of purpose, because of not really feeling connected with society, some of the struggles that they had. And what we found as an organisation that I belonged to at the time was, if you give young people a bit of an opportunity or a little bit of a helping hand towards, say, volunteering in this example, volunteering, you know, I had a young guy who was quite a little bit autistic, but certainly struggled socially, struggled with talking to people. So being there as a worker, to be there to introduce them to the organisation that they wanted to volunteer at, provided a sense of purpose and direction in his life. And I think that's something that I particularly got from Tom's efforts, was the I can do this. There was a perseverance, I think is probably the word. You know, that when you're encountering struggles, when you're having difficulties, that you find a way around it, and with support from family, you know, and obviously case in point with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we always, as a family, have had a great sense of purpose. Never, I could honestly say, never have any one of us got up in the morning and thought, what is today about? We know what we're doing. We set really high goals for ourselves. We sometimes even set unreachable goals because it keeps us hungry to do better. But I think what I saw in my father when he fell, keep in mind he was 98 when he fell, and up until that point was driving, fixing things, mowing the grass, being a absolutely active part of the family, and he fell unloading the dishwasher. And of all the mundane things in the world, but that did such a profound amount of damage to him. It took him a long time to rehabilitate, to even get him out of hospital. And there was no doubt in my mind that the person who came out was a frustrated individual he was frustrated by the time it was taking himself to rehabilitate. And I would say to him, look, you're nearly 100, you need to give yourself a break. But he could never accept it. He just wanted to get better. And what though happened is it was so slow, and he got another illness, and then his head, and things happened, and we really saw someone who had been so powerfully resilient in their life lose a little bit of it. And so when we said walk 100 laps, we'll give you £1 a lap, let's raise £1,000, it was also brilliant for him, because purpose in life, I honestly believe you could take away any rags, you could take your riches, you could take everything away from you. If you've got purpose, you can do anything. It's the people who have no purpose. It doesn't matter how much money you've got. It's got nothing to do with money. It's to do with values, and it's to do with the value you have in yourself and the purpose you give your life. And when we had that first, Milton Keynes FM picked us up first, we went, oh, how exciting. Like, no, and really they were lovely. And then Three Counties Radio came and, oh my God, this is incredible. I mean, and we'd hit then £2,000. We're like, this is crazy, like £2,000. And then Anglia came, and we stood with the crew in the garden, and I said, you know, do you think that, like, we made £2,000, 2,250. It was on the Wednesday after the Monday releasing the press release. And do you think we might make £5,000 by the end of the month? And we went, oh, I don't know. No one's got any money. Probably not, right? Let's keep it real. So then BBC Breakfast picked us up. And then we had 6 minutes well, this is the funny story. I'll tell you it quickly. On the Saturday after we'd sent out the press release on the Monday, my husband and I walked into the village, went to the butcher, went to the thing, walking back. My phone rang. Oh, hello, Hannah, this is the BBC. And I went, hi. Because I'm thinking they've called us because they'd been with us and they said, can we come back for the birthday? And I said, yes, of course you can. We'll get balloons and ribbon and stuff. So I answered the phone and said, oh, we've got balloons, we've ordered ribbon, we're all good. She went, like, yeah, that's nice. I'm like, okay, this is not the same woman. Can you go live in 3 hours? I'm like, oh, okay. Like TV? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, but you mean Tom, right? Not me. And she said, well, no, ideally you with Tom walking behind you. I'm like, oh, okay. So we kind of went, okay, we can do that. So we set up, so for 300 of the 400 and odd interviews, we've been using an old music stand from when the kids played recorder and a bit of blue tack and an iPhone. So we're in the garden, Benji's on controls and like moving, because they always want you to move the phone down a bit. You're like, we can't move it down a bit, the phone's going to fall off. So he's hanging onto the phone. My father's at the edge of the driveway with my husband going, do I tell him to walk yet? And I'm like, no, not yet. We've got 3 minutes, stand down. We've got 2 minutes, stand down. And so then we go, start walking. And then we go live. And I had no idea. I was talking to Rita Chakrabarti, and we were going live in the 6 minutes pre the first coronavirus update. So that was over the bank holiday weekend, and we came and I went, oh, well, that's done, but nobody will watch that because everyone's out barbecuing and no one's on the side watching TV. What we didn't know is that went to BBC World, and so that went out worldwide. And then through Benji and Instagram, the producer for Michael Ball connected with him and said, can we have, could we please get Captain Tom on 1.5 minutes we can give you between two other things? And we were like, okay. So we went on Michael Ball's Radio 2 on the Sunday, and by the end of the day, and this is when everything had changed, we'd gone up by £100,000. So we're now way past.
Oh, so it was a jump. That was a huge jump, wasn't it?
2,500 on the Wednesday. And so then you look at the man who had lost a bit of purpose, lost a bit of resilience, was feeling that he wasn't doing well enough. And suddenly the world's talking to him and saying, you are doing enough. In fact, you're doing more than enough. Just the fact that you're out there trying to rehabilitate, as much as that's not fast enough for you, it's fast enough for us. And we want to be part of it. And so just the thing is, I would say to anyone is one tiny, small step. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be, we could never have created this. If you'd gone to a media agency and said, you've got 20 million, create the world's largest good news story. Yeah. They couldn't have done it. So it's not about money. It's not about having all the tools at your fingertips. It's about doing one good thing that might be hugely impactful to just one other. Yeah. And that's all it needs to be. Because look what happens. Look what can happen. If you just get off your backside and think, what can I do to help somebody else? Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop looking inward, look outward, and see what one small thing. It doesn't have to cost you any money. That didn't cost us any money.
I think that's where people get confused though, because a lot of people, whether it's with something like this or with creating media for social media, we was talking about this the other day in regards to equipment. You were saying you used an old recording stand that the kids used to use when they used to play recorder, piece of blue tack and an iPhone, right? And that was the equipment that was used to put something live worldwide. That's what I'm saying. So
everywhere.
Yeah, it just goes to show that some people look and go, oh, well, I haven't got the money to get this. I can't do that because I can't do this. It doesn't actually, you don't need all that expensive equipment.
Yeah, if you really want to do it, you'll find a way to make it done.
But it's a metaphor for anything, I believe. Like, if there's anything stopping you from doing it because you haven't got that yet or you can't do this, as you said, just making the right step in the right direction is a start, and that's potentially all you need to do to get the ball rolling.
I think from somebody just said find a way as well, and having seen several documentaries about World War One, World War Two, and the recent 1917, there was a very much an attitude as you just find a way, you know. And I wondered if that sort of cascaded down from Tom into the family. I wondered whether it was a quality that you'd been taught. I can see it coming from him, certainly, the find a way. Somebody else, somebody's not else is not going to do it. We're going to do it. That kind of thing. There, you know, I was looking at it was a Peter Jackson documentary, and it was the one that had colour photo. They coloured the trench, views, and the sort of, I wouldn't say high spirits, but the sort of, they just sort of got on with it. That was it, and that phrase actually came up. You just get on with it, you know. And I just wondered if that sort of was how it kind of worked with your family, kind of cascading down, perhaps.
Yeah, I think without a shadow of a doubt, there were never any excuses. You know, there was never any poor me's. There was never just not allowed to be. You know, it just was, you know, get up, get on with it. We've got what we've got. We didn't grow up with loads of money. We were the last person on our street to get a colour TV when I was growing up. We weren't surrounded by wealth or chattels or amazing things, but we were surrounded by people who were invested in us and who wanted us to grow up resilient and never have an excuse for not doing something. And so I think that cascades all the way down, doesn't it? And there was no question that when the world's media descended on us, and they truly did and have, that we had to find a way to cope with it, because I knew that if we turned it away, it would come anyway, and then we would have no controls. So at that point, you have to make a really, you know, I was looking at my family and thinking, I have to protect my family. I did this. I pushed this story out. I'm responsible. No one was saying, oh my God, look what you've done. No, but I felt accountable to my family. And when we had drones and lenses through all the hedges, and immediately I'm thinking, George is 11, you know, George is 11. I have to protect her. You know, my father's about to be 100. I have to protect him. And so at that point, you think, do I let this overwhelm me and us, or do we go shoulder to shoulder and say, this is here, let's turn it into something even bigger and better and greater. If we push this back and get hold of it and push it back with as much love as it's coming back to us with, we could make something tremendous. And there was never any thought for our we never sought fame or fortune off the back of it. We're just as I said, just an ordinary family, but we decided that we had to take it and kind of wrap it up and push it back out, and see if we could keep connecting with all those individuals. Because what was so powerful, if you look at images of Tom in the first one, I mean, he's definitely absolutely connected and with it, but look at him now. So he's 17 weeks, 4 months older as a 100-year-old, which is quite a lot, right, when you're 100.
Yeah.
And he's fitter and more agile now than he was. There's purpose.
Yeah.
Purpose, because he knows people. What he said the other day is, if people can look at me and believe just a little bit, if they can take some influence from something I've done, I will keep doing it every day. If one person gets one positive thing out of something I'm doing, they can have it. And if we all just stopped for a minute thinking about ourselves every day, and think that it's actually about our values, it's got nothing to do with money or what you have around you. It's to do with how you believe in yourself and other people. And I think in today's world, I've got teenagers, that the world of social media is something I didn't have to grow up with. We had other issues, but not this. And now you just have to say one thing and it's out there forever. And also you're judged. Like Benji's 16 and has done a brilliant job of stepping up and coping. He's because he couldn't take his GCSEs. He's manning the hello at Captain Tom email, and answering the phone and doing interviews, and he's just doing brilliantly. But not a few years ago, I mean, maybe a couple of years ago, I think he was looking over my shoulder when I was looking on one of the social feeds, and he said, aren't you going to like that, Mum? I'm like, no. And he said, why not? And he said, don't you like it? And I said, I do. I do like it. And he said,
Then
so
like
it then. And I said, but I don't like it enough
to like it.
And he said, how can you measure your level of like? Because that person's going to feel really wounded that you didn't like it. And I said, no, but I'm not measuring my life by likes. And you have to move on, son, because life, if you're only ever looking to be rewarded by how many other people tell you you're great, then you're onto a loser.
Yeah.
Because it needs to come from inside. Hard lesson to learn, though. When you grow up,
That's it.
being measured on how many people like the photograph.
Yeah. I think for myself as well, and Adam, I can definitely vouch for, social media wasn't in our childhoods, was it? I mean, I remember when it first started getting implemented, but we had a childhood without it. You're younger, these two, Leon and Jack, a bit younger.
Yeah.
Can you remember when social media first came
I
in for you?
think social media just like went massive just as I was sort of turning maybe 18, 19. So I didn't have it at such a young age as like, let's say Jack. So I feel like I was quite lucky with that.
What do you mean lucky? I love a bit of social media.
No, but the thing is, you're not wrapped up in what Hannah's saying. So you don't. Obviously, everyone likes, right? It sets off something within our bodies. If you're using social media on a daily, and you end up with like, so my wife, for example, I told you this story yesterday. She's just fairly new to TikTok, but because Mason and Mia are big users of this platform, or they love it, they have to use it on her phone. Not old enough for it. They got her to do a video, and she's done a couple. And one of them had 10,000 views in like 2 days.
Wow.
But now...
Was she like, oh my
yeah,
God.
and I've not heard the end of it, right? Every day, Max, look, it's over 10K, it's been 2 days. But she's already feeling the pressure
For the
of
next
what
one.
to do next.
Yeah.
And she's where she didn't really think about the other one, now she's like losing sleep over it. It's like, this is where you've got to be careful, because you're going to fall into that hole of you're only doing it for the likes. Yeah. She started off the actual videos all to do with mental health. And because she suffered severely with mental health issues in her past and still to date, it was very Sarah, and it was something that she wanted to get out to try and help motivate others to. There's a real nice message from it. And I was like, you didn't think about it too much because it's something that you wanted to get out. But now you're in a position where all you're trying to do is better the last video when that's not what you've done it for. So it's easily done. But you think as some of the students that we work with, Health to Mind on NCS or whatever, the amount of young people, then this is what sort of raised alarm bells for me a few years back, is like how deep they are in social media, in a sense that a couple of the students that we was working with said that when it come to family holidays and stuff, they actually used to leave their mobile phone with a friend because they knew they wouldn't get data or Wi-Fi on holiday, and because they didn't want to lose their snap streak, which is where if I was texting Jack every day, we'd end up with a little heart emoji next to our names, then it'd be a flame, and it goes up like as a tier sort of process. And this student said to us, I was on like 1,000 stream what's it called? Streaks with so-and-so. So I left my phone so she could just text off my phone to her phone. So there was another student at home just texting, hi, how's it going? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you doing? It was just like, that blew my mind. And I couldn't believe that someone would be that bothered about keeping that streak going. And that's just a small part of social media. That's not the negative side. There's obviously
shows how
depression.
addictive it is.
Yeah, that's how addictive it can be. And if you've been born into this world where you know no different, this is where the problems are starting to come to surface. It's like they don't know no different, and it's us trying to get the messages to them that actually the great outdoors, getting off the sofa and doing something motivational to inspire others, it doesn't happen enough these days. And this is why I think we love the Sir Tom Moore story so much as well.
So Hannah, obviously Captain Sir Tom Moore got a lot of views, likes and everything across all social media platforms. Have you got any other advice you'd maybe give to your family or other young people, like how to cope with such big numbers maybe?
Yeah, well, I hope that none of you have to cope with such big numbers, because that in itself brings you something else to deal with. But I think you keeping in mind that when in that first week, it was our first week when I said, we should set him up a Twitter account. because then we can push all his photos there, and then people will stop asking.
Yeah.
And of course, that didn't actually work. But
It just creates more work.
but what it did was gave a safe place for people to go and respond to him. Because we were beginning to not be able to cope with any direct requests. So the Twitter account was born out of communication, not out of a desire for people to like it.
Yeah.
And so there's the big thing, isn't it? Use these tools for amazing communication. I've traveled around the world with my job, and in the years where I had to have a different phone for every region, and it was still I'd get to some countries and be dialing up. So yep, that long ago. But still, what it meant was that I could keep track of all those people, but it wasn't like today. So a lot of my social media is used because I can now reconnect with the person I worked with in Taipei, the one I worked with in Hong Kong, the team I had in Hawaii, the team I had in New York. I'm now connected with them. I love it for that, because I post not a lot actually, but they'll be able to see stuff that I'm saying, this, I'd like to share this. You've got to approach these things from a healthy perspective, but I do think it's really difficult, because I know, because I see it through my children's eyes, that that once you get caught in that trap of feeling like you're getting your reward from it, that you're getting your purpose from it, that's when it becomes really difficult. I think that for us, there is no question that he picked up 312,000 followers within about 5 days. He has got, at last count, 189 million impressions on his Twitter feed. And so we went, that sounds quite good. How good is that? And they went, yeah, well, Beyonce's the champion and she's on 20 million.
This is what Hannah told me on the phone, right? So I was just expecting a normal phone call. When I start hearing these numbers, I'm going to let you finish though, Hannah, and go through these, because there's the royal wedding mentions as well. So yeah, just tell these lot exactly what you was about to say.
So 189 million impressions. You've got people from around the world desiring to connect. And so when you use it from a healthy platform of communication, that's amazing. If you do it because you're seeking a reward, then it becomes really tricky. But if you start to think about what we coped with, it was the gifts that arrived in their truckload, 7,500 to date, that we've opened here, just us here. So imagine, all I would say to you is, anybody listening who lives in a family of 1, 2, 3, 4, how would you cope with that? Because no one said, we've got you, don't worry, we'll send in a crew. 7,500 presents, and they still arrive. And there's another lot coming today. So as I say, each of those things, and you don't want to repel not one of them, because somebody somewhere around the world thought that they'd do it, knitted it, sewed it, made it, bought it, packaged it, went to the post office and sent it. So how could we ever say, 7,500 presents? What we say is, it's just 7,500 presents. It's hard enough if you have a kid's birthday and there are 20.
You have to start getting rid of stuff out of the house just to accommodate.
Yeah, now 7,500, imagine that. 150,000 letters that come, they come in their hundreds every day.
So you said that obviously you had no support and stuff with this, and obviously you had your own business going on before all this. Obviously we was in lockdown and stuff. So what's happened to that? Have you arranged someone else to sort of take care of that for the moment?
No, we do that too, and so we have to. It's a challenge.
Yeah,
There's no question about it. But all of my team, they're amazing, and they're looking to me, and so I can't say. Do you know what? Well, for a few weeks I said, you're on your own, guys. I'm a bit busy over here because we've got the world's press at the gate. But now we have. So today, I've managed 6 interviews around. Emailing the team, connecting. We've got our clients are beginning to come back to life, which is fantastic. We feel very, very lucky. We've worked really hard. We did a lot of benevolent free work during lockdown. We pushed out lots and lots of free stuff because we felt that we couldn't charge anyone for what we were doing. We were just knocking out as much free stuff, connecting with people mostly, as much as we could. So we put together some workshops for business leaders locally who suddenly were coping with either furloughed teams or remote teams. How on earth do you manage that? trying to share business issues locally, because it was about strengthening our mental health as business leaders to make sure that we weren't collapsing under the pressure of loss of our business, which has huge impact on our lives. So I think that there's so many messages to take out of what happened, and what is still happening to us as a family is that it has taken absolute resilience and communication and desire to do the right thing always, and never ever did we've ever sat down and said poor us.
Nope.
Oh no.
But what you did do, Hannah, you just got on with it.
we
You
did.
got on with it, and that's something that there's been mentioned quite a few times on this podcast. Like, literally, you had all that, because a lot of people wouldn't know. Again, I can only imagine what it's like, and especially when there's a family with young children and stuff involved. The whole thing, to me, I don't personally. Just saying here, I don't think I would have been able to deal with that amount of spotlight, that amount of pressure. That's sort of like a make or break for most. But obviously, with your upbringing and with all the stuff that's been passed down from Sir Tom, I believe that's probably helped you out massively in that sense.
Yeah, and do you know what? The major thing is, and maybe this is something for your listeners to really think about, it was never about me, and it was never about my husband, it was never about my children. It was about allowing a man to showcase his best. So I didn't go on the TV because I fancied a little run at the TV. It never crossed my mind. I went on the TV, and the only thing I cared about, and to this day, it's the only thing I care about, is can he hear, and is there enough time to create his response? Because what will happen is, as lovely as all the presenters generally are, I'll say to them, can you keep your questions short, please? Because essentially I'm translating.
Yeah.
So can you keep them quite short? Then I can pick out the best bits and feed it to him, and then he can give you a great answer. But of course they don't, because they get carried away. So then you imagine the pressure is, now I have to really listen. Now I've got to properly really listen to everything they're saying, because I'm his ears. So at that point, I'm not thinking, how does my hair look? Have you got my nice side? Or I shouldn't have worn that shirt. Or how many likes did I get this morning? I'm thinking only, can he hear it? Yeah. And is it relevant? Are we making this relevant and engaging for him? Yeah. And so if anyone looks at it and thinks that it was about courting fame or fortune, it just never, ever has been part of it. And it's always been about the value that we held in somebody else. And that's what life's about, isn't it? The life isn't and shouldn't be about rolling out of bed and worrying purely about ourselves. It's about what energy we put out, who we connect with, what positive impact do we have. And if you can behave like that, the likes become less important, because they'll come anyway.
I was just wanted to tap into that, Hannah, as well. I was going back to social media and how we're on the receiving end of so much content all the time, news stories, and I, for one, was checking the news a lot more than I normally do, in light of the pandemic. And I was thinking, like, what, if you could step outside just a little bit, what do you think, why did this catch fire? Out of all the things out there that people can kind of respond to or get involved in, I was wondering what your thoughts were on why this one in particular caught people's eye.
I think that it's a really difficult to unpick it. I think if you tried to unpick it and took one thing away, it would all fall over. I think that, in those early days, we look at each other and go, why? And then we stopped asking ourselves, because we were just doing. But I think that it is about someone who's lived for 100 years and can resonate with people of all ages. Of course, he had children later in life, and he's really connected with children. So Benji at 16, Georgia at 11, he understands how they operate, so he can connect with them. They have interesting conversation, and he is interested in what they do. So suddenly here's a 100-year-old who's looking down the lens and can talk to you, or the 11-year-old, or the 5-year-old, or the 2-year-old's first steps, or the 104-year-old who wants to prove they can do it too. And then, of course, if Tom had done that by himself, living by himself, he could not have sustained any responses. But because he lived in a family where we have our own business, we have emotional and mental resources, then we were able to to surround him by credibility and resources and resourcefulness. The resources were our minds, not our tools. Music stand, blue tack, remember, and a spreadsheet to collate all their media, to get them in some order. So I think, and because we're ordinary, I honestly think that because we're just average Joe, we could have been anybody, and I think that's part of it.
That's what's inspired so many, and also I think it becomes quite clear that it wasn't started to create as big of a scene as what it has. Like the goal was at the beginning was 1,000, wasn't it? Like
£1,000.
Yeah. So and I think a lot of people would ask that question, Adam, because they'd be like, "How did they do that? Like, how did that happen?" But it is just one of those things.
Yeah, I can see that it's not entirely easy for you to answer, but if I could just offer a little bit from my outside looking in, for me it represented hope, and there was a lot of the need for hope in the early days of the pandemic, and I think there was also the speed in which there was a collective support of the NHS that seemed to kind of tie into what Tom's aim was as well. And I'd like to think maybe underneath the surface was about whatever you're faced with in the struggles that you have, that there are ways. And you talked about being resourceful, and there's something in that about, we did it, we found a way, but also what you needed was at your disposal. And I kind of relate to that particularly with the sort of founding of Hear2Listen, about two people not really knowing how to do business or, but having this aim and this dream to kind of get the company up and running. And actually with Google and with all the information that we've got available to us, it's there. So in a sense, there's kind of no excuse, and I think like when I was younger, the assumption that like business owners, people like Alan Sugar, it was just a thing that they were born with. And I look at that with Tom sometimes as well, the assumption that the only reason he was able to do this because he's born with certain things that allowed him to do this, but that's not the case. I think so much is within us all, and you talked about earlier about potential, and I think there's so much potential within everybody that maybe gets a bit overshadowed sometimes by social media, by the instinct to kind of keep on your phone. I was fascinated by what you were saying earlier about some young people feeling their sense of purpose from logging onto their own phones and sharing something or doing something around social media, which for the lucky ones, the Twitch guys and all that sort of stuff, maybe there are certain outsiders that do manage to do something with that. But I think the tale, and just to sum this up, is about the potential within us all to be able to do things that are incredibly difficult, that if we access the right kind of support, we are capable of doing it. If we access the kind of resources, we are capable of doing it. And I think for me, that is what the message encompasses from someone outside looking in.
Yeah, very interesting. And there's no question that what resonated around the world was hope. And we were supporting the cause that's close to all our hearts, right? The NHS. But it was hope. So those 162 countries that are not the UK did not donate to the NHS. They donated for hope and for purpose. And we inadvertently packaged that up. But it is, and the thing I say again, and to your point, is we didn't have any magic. We didn't have a secret drawer with all the things in. We just had ourselves. And the belief that once people started to engage with it, that we could keep doing it and keep giving people hope. And that's why we set the foundation up as inspiring hope where it's needed most, because we believe that Tom, is able to connect hope. And it's so powerful.
Yeah, agreed.
Are you talking? Is it me?
No, go ahead.
Oh, cool.
Sorry.
I was just going to quickly go back to, obviously, we mentioned Benji a couple of times, your son, 17 years old, and it's been my point of contact, actually, running up to this podcast. Obviously, for him, because he's taken...
I was curious about this as well. Sorry, I don't know what you're about to say, but like this young person that's kind of going along with their lives.
Yeah,
and then suddenly
that's what I was going to say. Obviously, it's changed all of your lives, but this is someone who potentially we would be working with this summer. How's it been for him personally? I suppose, is he loving life? Is he?
Yeah, I mean, he's 16, not 17 till next year.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And so it has been, look, he's been brought up in the same environment. Get up, get on with it, no excuses. I won't bore you to death, but I was once in India and had done a long trip in India, and I came back and they were like, "Oh, hi, Mum, nice to see you." I'm like, "Yeah, put everything down, because I'm going to tell you this, that you are white and male with a British passport. Don't ever tell me you can't, because there are kids out there who don't have any of those things that are attributes in life, whether it's right or wrong, and you've got them. So for now, never again will you give me any excuse that you can't do something, because you've got it all." to go with. So don't ever look at anyone else and think that, you know, they've got more things. No one can have more things.
No.
You've got everything. So I think that having come from a family where there's obviously an older grandfather, and me who's traveled globally, it's really interesting. I felt so strongly about that because I spent weeks looking at children the same age who had nothing and would be disadvantaged by the color of their skin, which is obscene. And then I'd come back and go, please don't ever tell me. Please don't ever tell me that there's something that you think you can't do, because you're wrong. And everyone has to have the chance, and you've got more chances than a lot of other kids. So step up. And I suppose when you drip feed that stuff into your kids, it resonates at some point, but you never know until the spotlight turns, do you? If, as a parent, and for you younger people who can think, oh, well, maybe my parents looked at me and thought that, but you don't know until the spotlight turns. It's a bit like sending your child off on the first play date. You just hope they behave.
Yeah.
They say please and thank you and don't mess it up, don't you?
Yeah.
Like, please come back liking my kid. And so you do all this stuff as a parent. You push it and you push it and you push it and you push it in, and you're tested. And you don't quite know if you've done a good job until you look. And it came first with Georgia, actually, who's 11, when we had one of the news channels here, and we had lots of news channels here, but this particular one said, can you go live in 30 seconds? I mean, actually, at that point, what do you say?
Oh, I don't know. I'll probably pass out. I'm not going to lie. I would probably pass out.
Every time we looked down the camera, people donated. So I'm never going to say no. So I went, okay. And everyone around me disappeared. So there was no Tom, there was no Benji, and Georgia was next to me because she's just delightful. And so I said, yep, Georgia and I'll do it. And so the camera turns. I'm thinking they'll come to me. It's news, live news. And the camera turned on Georgia. And as a parent, your heart skips a beat because you think, oh my God, what's she going to say? What is she going to say? What are they going to ask her?
Things.
And you do. It's horrible. You can't do that because you know the cameras are watching, so smiling and waving. And they said to her, so, Georgia, tell me, what do you think has been the magic behind what your grandfather's done? And she's 11. How does she know what the magic is? She just turns up. And so she came out with something amazing. I was like, oh, thank you. Because she said, well, I think what he's done is he's given everyone hope. And she chanted out a lovely little line because she's just been listening. And I just thought, thank you, amazing. So what happens when you put your kids under pressure, providing they feel they've got somewhere to fall, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. You just have to have belief. So I never let her think, oh my God, I'm scared about what you're going to say. You have to look at them and go, it's all right. Go
ahead,
do it.
Have your voice.
It's gonna be fine. And with Benji, what happened is I was trying to take as many of the interviews away from Tom as I could because he's nearly 100. And I had suddenly looked, and we weren't in control at all. To say we lost control would assume that we had some, and we didn't. And so it was slipping away from us. And suddenly I looked down, and my husband came in and went, "You just missed CNN," like it was the most terrific thing I could ever done in my whole life. I missed CNN. Like, oh my God. I don't know why I missed CNN. It's just not on my schedule, and I didn't know. And then I realized that the next 3 interviews were all booked at the same time. And he wasn't being awful. He was just, we were caught up. You missed the opportunity to talk to America. Like, how could you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. It wasn't there. I couldn't do it. And then there were 3, and I turned to Benji and went, "You're going to have to take one." And he went, "No, it's all right, Mum, thanks." And I went, "No, I say that. I'm just going to say that again. You're taking this one, and it's a radio. It's going to be fine. Like, you can do radio with your pants on. It doesn't matter. Like, no one's looking at you. Just do it. It doesn't matter. Just tell them all the positive stuff they're looking to hear. Tell them about Grandpa. You're going to be fine." So he spins away and do that. I do that one. I roll on to the next one. I come back and find him, and he goes, "Oh, it was fine, Mum." Okay. I went, "See, you can do it." And now I'm like, now I know we can do it. So that's how it happened. The kids became enveloped in it, and had to step up. There was no forgiving. There was no, "Oh, are you okay?" No chance to check to see if they're okay, because the world was watching and wanting to engage. So they, of course, I'm incredibly proud of how they've both responded. But I think it's in everybody. I think everyone can do it, and we just allowed them to. And actually, it was necessity. They had to take part.
Not just that, again, opportunity, Adam. You said it earlier. If they haven't got the opportunity sometimes or the guidance, then a lot of people will never feel like they can do it. But sometimes it just needs that little encouragement, that little guidance from someone else to sort of, feed them into whether it's the organisation or the new role that they want to take on.
I think there's parallels with the lot of the work that we do, particularly with the NCS. The whole kind of system of that is geared around like, go ahead, kind of take the chance, give it a go.
Phone that company that you've never spoke to before.
Yeah,
Get out your comfort zone.
Yeah, all the skills that you've been talking about, like resilience, communication, teamwork, all that sort of stuff is literally what we just try and push into these young people. We tell them how great it is to have these skills, but they just don't see it, do they? Not until the end, or they get into a job where they actually have to use these skills. But they are just so important, just day in, day out. And then you get something like this comes along, and they're really useful.
Like I said, there was nothing magic. It was just resourcefulness. It was necessity and resourcefulness and belief, and saying you can do it. You can do it. And it doesn't matter if you get it wrong. Actually, it really didn't matter if we got it wrong, because everyone was forgiving us. No one was saying, you see, they messed up now, I'm not going to give them 20 quid. No one was saying that. So it was a safe place to, obviously a very public place, but a safe place to muck it up. And that's what you have to give people, a safety net.
Yeah.
And if you look at my team, if you ask them, if you got them on this podcast, they'd say she makes me do stuff all the time that I don't think I can do, because I believe they can. And I'll say to them, you can do it.
Sound a little bit like our boss.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Everyone just looked at each other. I was like, sound a little bit like our boss. Yes, it does.
No, definitely
She
our
does
boss.
this to us.
It
all.
was something I was curious about the driving force behind this, actually. When we look at our company, I see Dawn as something of a matriarch, the sort of mother hen that does those things that kind of go, that, and countless times me, I've got a bit of anxiety, that kind of stuff about things. I've found it difficult to kind of step outside my comfort zone, but by God, have I done that, working alongside Dawn. And what have I learned from it? Huge amounts of stuff I've developed. I've taken some of those chances, although quite scary at the time. And going back to young people and the opportunities that are out there for them, that there's an instinct, certainly I found in my last job, for some of the more anxious young people to shy away from those things that can help minimize the anxiety in the end, because you kind of inure yourself to some of those fears and you build up the resilience and the tolerance to certain things, your skills build. If I look at the sort of an example of public speaking, it's probably one of the least popular things that people want to do, but we've seen young people stand at graduations and taking that chance and coming away with some skills around public speaking just because of that step that they took, so I'm very
with
much
the safety net as well, though. Talking of safety nets, that's again when you look at the program that we deliver, and this is from the young person's point of view as well. When we're talking about the participants that take part, it's very much a safe environment. And we was only doing a staffing video yesterday to record to put out to the staff. It's the same for our staff. So we recruit 120 seasonal staff to help us deliver our programs each summer. And when we go to the universities to recruit these, a lot of the staff members are from the universities, and when we're in these universities and stuff, or at jobs fairs, or wherever we go, we're saying to people that you can get on board and we can give you all the training you need to help us deliver this program in a safe environment. And that safe environment is, we don't just stop at an interview. So we'll interview you first. We'll then invite you to an assessment day, because some people will not go for a job just because of the interview. That could be the barrier. So then we get them to the assessment day as well, where it's a little bit more relaxed. But that doesn't stop. The support is still there throughout program. If a staff member is struggling, or if they're lacking confidence with public speaking, or for whatever it is, we will go side by side, whether it's Leon, Jack, myself, Adam, any others of the core team, we will all go, and one of us will be with that team leader just to give a bit of support. And I think that's another thing that stops a lot of people from applying themselves to certain things, is not having that support network, not having any safety net at all, or feeling like they haven't.
Or belief in themselves.
Or self-belief. Self-sabotage is a huge one amongst young people these days. And that's some of the sessions that we cover, self-sabotage and self-belief,
It's massive. To have belief in yourself, you have to dig deep, and you have to find that resource internally. On one of my jobs where I was posted first to the United States, and I walked into the headquarters where I was working then, and the the head of the business that I was being swung into to support, told me in no uncertain terms to turn back round again and clear off, that I wasn't wanted. He didn't want me there, that I was not going to hire or fire for him. And he was incredibly abusive verbally, so I wouldn't repeat any of what he said. And as a young woman in a very male environment, and I say relatively young, I was in my 20s, so to stand there and actually my knees were knocking. I thought I'd never faced anything like it. Someone who was vitriolically attacking me just for doing my job, and I thought, I will never show you any fear. You're not going to see how afraid I am, and I'll stand my ground because I came here because I was asked to, and I'm not afraid of you. Actually, I was terrified, yeah. But I walked away, and I walked away from him, and I found him at my desk, and I introduced myself to the team in New York, and actually it turned out to be an incredibly brilliant few years. But the point was that right there and then, nobody was there. No. I had nobody to phone. No one said, "Don't worry, he's just an arse." No one said it was me, just me. And I would implore young people to look inside themselves and say, I can do it. I believe in myself. And you don't need anything fancy. You need to value other people for a start. Mm-hmm. And you need to value other people not based on how many amazing posts of their breakfast they put out or how many amazing classy pictures they put out or who they've seen or how many likes they've got. You've got to value somebody for who they are. And that's a huge benefit to you. If you can look at other people and believe that they're really good people and they're worth investing in all of them, you've got that, then you start to believe in yourself. Because if you value them, you'll value yourself. So then that point when I stood there thinking, oh, my knees are shaking, I'm shaking, I'll never let him see my fear. You have to turn that inside and say, no, I will not be put down by somebody he was putting me down for my gender. He was putting me down for being in a senior position that he didn't want to tolerate. And as a woman in business, I've faced that all my life. You know, I've been nearly always the lone female in a board of senior execs. And still in 2020, that can be the case if I guest onto executive boards. And now I've just become much better. You know, age becomes us, right? There is a little bit of saying it's all right. There's still plenty of misogyny out there, I can tell you. And something that a lot of the girls who are coming up will find it even harder than the boys. I'm not saying it's easy for the boys. I'm really not, despite what I said to Benji. I'm not saying that it's always easy. But just think of your female counterparts who are already disadvantaged by the very fact that they're a girl. Like Georgia's a golfer, and she will walk into a group of boy golfers, and actually it won't be the boys. It will often be the parents who go, oh, she's a girl, they won't want to play with her. Now, the boys didn't say it, but they're being cultured by the parents to say she's not good enough because she's a girl. And so this is all about understanding ourselves and being super positive about who we are.
So I don't know what that noise is, Hannah, in the background. I've got a funny feeling there's going to be, yes, we are at Shuttleworth, so there are lots of aeroplanes flying over, and there is an airplane show this weekend, I believe.
He's doing a loop.
Yes, it's the red arrows are out again. That does genuinely happen. I remember coming in last summer before programs started, and I come in on a Sunday just to get a bit of paperwork and looked out the window, and the red arrows were flying past. I couldn't believe it. It was amazing.
It was amazing.
When you're driving into work and you have to dodge planes.
Yeah, you actually do. Yeah, there's a
that's
wrong
an
way.
experience. That's so cool.
I am cautious of the time, Hannah. I know I did say on the email that it'd only be no more than an hour, and I'm looking at it now. We're 11 minutes over, so I'm going to apologise for not being punctual and wrapping this up soon.
That's just Max.
I hope, they told you I was a waffler, but
I just had one question. I just had one curious thing if you wanted to add that on the end, but carry on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. I read in the Wikipedia that you're working on a book, and I wondered if there was any progress with that. What kind of subject would it be about? And it also said the release date was September, which doesn't sound very far away, and you've implied that you're very, very busy at the moment. So how are you writing the book?
So it's not me writing the book. So Tom has written his memoirs, we've been very busy supporting him doing that. I mean, you know what they say, ask a busy person to do a job and you'll get it done. And we are beyond busy, but so you managed to just carve out the time to do all these things, and he's been very busy working on that, and it has actually gone now back to the publisher, so it will be out and in print. That will be his memoirs on the 17th of September. Benji and Georgia and I have also been working on the children's book, taking Tom's story and crafting it into a picture book, and that will be released on the 1st of October. Amazing. So they're both books are going to be great. You know, I've been fortunate enough to proofread the memoirs several times, and also to be fully involved in the picture book. So they're both going to be fabulous, and I think it will give people a real chance to reconnect with him and understand his story. And I can honestly tell you that there's loads of stuff in there I didn't know. I'm like, really? I had no idea. So it's going to be a good read, I think.
In regards to the children's book, just saying, if you did need any background characters for animation, if you look at the thumbnails to the Hear2Listen podcast, we are all turned into cartoon characters. So we might be able to get a little appearance. I recognise that guy.
I want mine redone.
Yeah, same.
Well, I wasn't actually going to wrap up. I was going to ask you, Hannah. Obviously, we have gone over, but if you've got a few more minutes, that I'd love to extend it a little bit longer, but no pressure at all. I mean, we can wrap this up now if you like, or I mean, if you're happy.
If you just give me 1 minute, I'm sorry to do this. I just need to check when the next one is.
Don't miss CNN again, please.
Yeah, no, that was a disaster.
You got back one there though, didn't you? Because I did watch one on YouTube. CNN, a lady from the States.
Yeah, but that was early in the days when we thought they might never come back.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's all right because we talk to them quite often now. I'm definitely good for about another 10 minutes.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Cool. To be honest, may not get anything from what I was about to ask. And it's, the only reason I'm asking this is because I did watch a fair few of the interviews. What did make me laugh was that I believe it was a CNN one from the States, and the reporter asked Sir Tom what was said between him and the Queen. Now, obviously, I don't want everything, but can you give us a tiny snippet, maybe? One word, not one word, and. They said and. No. But there was a conversation, wasn't there? That's, again, hard to imagine.
Who could imagine? And Her Majesty the Queen asked the whole family to go. So again, so many unprecedented things. It was, I believe, the first individual investiture. It's the first time she came out of her bubble.
Yes, it was, yeah.
She specifically asked that the whole family attend because she knew that whilst he, of course, it's all about him, that he had the support of the family. So she asked us all to be there. And so he stood and waited for the Queen to come out. And to be really honest, I stood there on the balls of my feet because I didn't know if he could hear. Right, so I didn't know if he'd be able to hear the signal to step forward. So I'd all the stuff you don't see, of course. So we'd got there early so that I could pace it out for him, and So I walked it with the Colonel to see what hurdles there might be, where he'd go, what the grass would be at. And then I look at the grass and I'm in heels. I'm like, oh. So I'm not sure about that. I'm worried about whether he can get his walker over. I'm worried about whether my heels are going to work on the grass. So we start to walk and then we pace it out and we get in, and it's very nice grass, by the way.
I was going to say, the groundkeeper must have been watching you.
Yeah, I'm sure. Much nicer grass than ours. So there's a little line in it that must be for when they parade and things. That is the line you have to stand on. You would never see it was a line if you weren't staring at it. Yeah. And then when your name is called, you have to step 2 paces forward. So my fear, and everyone's fear, so everyone's looking to me, right? The piper's piping and Her Majesty's coming, and I'm thinking, what if he doesn't hear? So, and if he doesn't hear, the Colonel can't do it, right? They can't all break out of their marks. So the only person who's allowed at this point to do anything is me. So there's my husband standing here, me, Benji, Georgia, and it's beating down like 29 degrees, all in suits, all our gear. And I looked at my husband and we looked at each other and went, it's like, 16 weeks. Who could have imagined? And then, but I'm now, all the pressure's on the front of my feet, and any of the girls listening will feel my pain. So I'm on the front of my feet because I can't lean back. Because if I lean back, I would be out of my shoes.
Thinking.
Flat in my face. So I've got my pressure on the front, waiting, and the colonel says, "Captain Tom Moore," and I wait. Did he hear it? Oh, he heard it.
Oh,
So now I can relax. Now I can relax and enjoy it. And so he walked forward, and she came out, and I think she did say to him, "Don't worry," because remember one of his interviews, he'd said, "I hope she's not too heavy-handed.
yeah.
I might never get up." And so she tapped him on the shoulders, and one of the things she did say was, "Don't worry, I'm quite good at it." And so then, what was said to him is completely between him and her. She then invited the family to come and stand and talk to her. So it's also beautifully done, I can tell you. If you want precision, that's precision down to the highest order. All small hand signals and wafts and nods make the whole thing work seamlessly. So nothing on the TV would have ever seen that we'd been signaled, because it all happened so silently. So we walked forward, and there's a fabulous picture taken where the Queen's, she was smiling, everyone was smiling, because what's not to smile about when a 100-year-old's being knighted? There's nothing, unless you're miserable. There's nothing to not smile about, right?
Yeah.
So even if you don't really like the royal family, even if you don't really believe in the protocol of being knighted, you can't not smile at a 100-year-old being knighted by a 96-year-old. And in Windsor Castle, come on. So we walked up, and there's that moment where the Queen was almost laughing, and it looks like she's laughing, because Georgia had just, we were just chatting about what we'd all achieved as a family. So she said, "What you've achieved is marvelous. I understand, that the world's been watching, and well done." And Georgia at 11 went, "Well, not Mom. No, nothing, because it just rolled out. I have not been able to go back to school. And I'm a year 6, like the Queen should know that year 6s were supposed to go back to school. I'm a year 6, and I should have gone back to school, but I couldn't, because I've been shielding Grandpa." And she said, "Oh, that must have been so difficult." And Georgia went, "Yes, it really was." And she said, "You must have been missing all your friends." She said, "Yes, I really have been." And that's what that smile was. Her completely engaged with an 11-year-old. It was utterly magical. It was the most magical moment. The nearest I can describe it, if you've ever been to Disney as a young kid, or taken a young kid to Disney.
Last year,
I
was an adult, and the magic's still there.
Right, so when you take your kids, or as a kid, you look up Main Street, and you go, that, if you've ever seen a kid do that, that's the closest I can, because you're in magic. You're in something magical. It's just indescribably incredible. And, we still pinch ourselves. We're like, really?
Did this happen?
Because we just feel so ordinary that we haven't done anything extraordinary. We're just ordinary, and we just couldn't really believe it. But it was amazing.
It brought hope to so many nations. And the thing is, just looking at the knighthood, there's I don't know if it was over, but 850,000 signatures on the petition. I didn't even know that to be knighted, it would involve getting signatures or people on board. I thought it was just something that the royal family or the Queen would sort of decide, but actually people signed their signatures to say, "No, do this, make this happen."
They can do, yeah. So normally you'd have to go through I never know, so this isn't the right order, but CB, OB, MB, I never know which one comes first. But normally you have to go through that first before you're knighted, I believe. So I think on one of the breakfast TVs, I think maybe Charlie said to him, "So how many people will you take to your knighthood?" And so Tom went, "Well, I don't know. I might have to have tickets." Because so many people will want to come. And Charlie said at the time, "Well, Tom, you've broken every other rule, so I expect you probably can." And I think that's a little bit how it's been for him. And he's spectacularly blasted through all protocol, and because it was the will of the people.
Yeah.
And that will, they heard it, and they fed it, and they fed from it, and they reacted. I think if it hadn't been reacted to, people might have been a bit angry, but it was reacted to, and people felt glad that people who've signed it go, "Yeah, you see, we wanted that to happen."
Yeah.
And so people feel that they've got something back. that she listened.
Yeah, and had a say in that happening, I suppose, and an involvement in the happening,
Yes.
in the making of it, 100%.
Yeah, the people did that. We didn't. You know, we didn't make that happen. The people of this country made that happen.
I'm still just trying to take it.
I know, it's such an inspirational story, isn't it? From start to finish, it's crazy.
Again,
we knew what was going on. We knew about the money raised and like how it had all started, but from hearing it from start to finish, it's actually mad, isn't it?
And then obviously conversations, and you said it yourself, you're just ordinary people, and it's like that is I think the thing that sinks in mostly for me personally as well, after having conversations with yourself. It's just like that is such a huge thing to have, and to be involved with, but no one really looks at the pressures or you know it's horrible to say the negative side, but you know, with everything there's always pros and cons to everything, and it's gonna bring a lot of pressure and stuff, and people don't appreciate that actually a couple of weeks before, you're just getting on with your normal routines, and you know, it's just like boom, there's that.
And it's really nice to hear like your side of the story as well, because like it's all been focused on Sir Tom, which it should be, but it's been nice to see like how you've been coping. Seems like you've been doing really well.
Yeah, and the family and the kids and everything. It has been good.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we're still the people who get up in the morning, put the kettle on. You know, someone has to pick up the dog poo from the garden. You know, it's just normal life. Like our life is just everyone else's normal life. And look, the reality is we've had to cope with the haters will always hate, and
there's always going to be haters.
And you know, we should sing it, but they really do. And we picked up haters quite early on, and you wouldn't believe there was anything to hate. And so there'll always be people who find hate, and what I'd say is to anybody out there who's picking up anything negative, you have to package it away, because those people, they don't deserve any time or airspace. I won't tell you what some of the people have said, because it would give them credibility.
It's not worth it.
And you have to think, if those people hide behind a keyboard and say some vile things, then move them on in your life, cut them out, walk away, because the majority of people were so positive. Of course we picked up the negative, because that's life, and there'll always be someone.
And I think what we were saying earlier about in the absence of purpose, people find purpose, and for some sad reason that is what they see as their purpose, you know. So just, you know, to wrap up, Hannah, for the theme for me is about resilience, really. Is the so many examples as you were talking were like, oh no, we've got to do this thing, all right, okay, I guess we're doing it now, and that, you know, even like I've got to go see the Queen now, okay, I don't know, okay, and standing next to Tom, I don't know if it's going to, okay, we're going to do it. So it was constantly like pushing you outside of your comfort zone all the way. So I think in terms of a message that we want to get to our listeners, it's very much that you know, take the opportunities even if there's loads of fear around it as well, and actually it wasn't that bad once you got through it, really. And
if it goes wrong, does it actually matter?
Yeah, no? Exactly.
No, and honestly, one of the biggest things, it's resilience, it's hope, and also don't worry. If it goes wrong, what's the worst that can happen?
Dr. Pepper.
You know, that, and mostly nothing terrible, right? So I think try and push, like you push away the haters, push away the fear. You know, just feel really good about yourselves. Look inward and believe, and then push it out and value other people.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
That positive energy as well. Just it's the energies that we surround ourselves with as well. People get sort of sidetracked and go down those wrong paths of hanging around with or listening to friends that are saying meaningful things. For example, as I was saying with Mason and stuff, it's like you've just got to remove yourself away from those people, because there will always be people like that. They may change, but the time being, they may just want to be that keyboard warrior or that hater that is always going to put you down.
They won't lose no sleep over it, but if you focus on it, you will as well.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Like me with this podcast last night, I didn't get any sleep, Hannah. Thank you very much for that one.
Yeah, we were all sweating this morning.
What were you worrying about?
All the stats,
the fame,
and the figures, and the rest of it. It's like we've only been
you're
doing
a
this since
superstar
the
now.
beginning.
And like when we spoke to you quickly before, you're like, just got 2 film crews here. Like we hung up the phone like before we come back on air. It's like 2 film crews.
We've just got one, and it's our own.
No one's behind it.
But listen, the thing is, they come and mostly they say they come with all their kit, and I'll say to them, well, look, let me tell you the best way to set this up. You need to put that there and do that there, and if you put the mic and you tuck it here, because he's got to put his hearing aid here, and they're like, oh my god, but that's what happens. You become immersed and knowledgeable. It's like anything, do it over and over again, and you get quite good at it. And this morning we had Australia, and it was quite challenging because they wanted 2 phones, and one to do the Zoom link, but without sound. And the other thing, just to leave you with, when you do all of this live TV, you can't see anything. So we can't see the studio, we can't see the people we're talking to. We see ourselves in a small box on your iPhone, and you hear sound. That's it. Nice. So we talk to a blank screen almost every time we do anything. And so which for someone who can't hear, imagine how that is. Yeah. So he's staring at a blank screen that I can hear, but he can't. So I have to bring it to life for him. And engaging quite often what has turned into a bit of magic is they'll say something, it makes me laugh because they're asking him something ridiculous like, would you jump out of an airplane? Or, what's the favorite thing? And so I'll laugh before I've asked the question, which makes somebody else laugh. And so that's been a little bit of the fun of the journey. But then you'll have the things where they say, look, I need you to put Zoom on, but without the sound. And then we're going to call you on the other phone for the sound. And if you could set up the Zoom so that we can see you, but don't use the sound. I'm like, he's 100. He's 100. Please don't make me do that. And in the end, you have to go. So I could either at that point, because we're quite tired, actually, a little tired and emotional, and you're not quite so able to deal with everything when you're so tired, that I almost went, do you know what? No, thank you. And then I thought, no. You have to think. They're desperate to speak to him. And it's going to be really positive, like move on. Like I have to have a word with myself and go, don't be miserable. Like, don't tell them no. Find a way to say yes. And I suppose that's another, thing. We've been rolling for 19 weeks, whatever the weeks is. And there are times when it's difficult to do. But I've never said no, and I won't either, because I think if we can just do one small thing that may impact someone else positively, please do it.
But also on that, Hannah, when you said you're never going to say no, but you will make sure that you look after your physical state and your mental state in this situation, because you don't want to burn out is one way of looking at it. So you may have to say no sometimes, you personally or whoever, but you can still do the thing, but just look after yourself at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really good point, isn't it? We must look after our own mental health. Everyone's responsible to look after their own mental health, and we are challenged, but we're very much in this together as a family. So we all ride our ups and downs together. We're not the Brady Bunch. It still means we upset each other. We will aggravate each other, but it's important that in the end we're united, and that's what we have to be.
Awesome. I know we're literally wrapping this up now. Before we do a 1 minute little introduction to our team leader, Erin, family friend that's got the interview, because obviously we're going to be showing our viewers that shortly. They don't know about it yet. They're like, what? Interview with?
Yeah, so Erin is an amazing family friend. We've had incredible support from our friends in the village who have been part of the package opening team as the thousands of presents arrived. They all donned their PPE and came as a team to open all of this stuff. And Erin was part of the team. And it was through Erin and her amazing experience at NCS, and she's talked about that so positively and with such energy and such resourcefulness, that she really knew that she was doing something incredibly powerfully positive, and she was very proud. And it was through that connection with Erin that we are speaking today, but also that she had a one-to-one interview with Captain Sir Tom, and which was very interesting, and I'm sure everyone will enjoy listening to.
Well, thank you very much. And once again, Hannah, hugely grateful for coming on and spending time with us today. We fully appreciate how busy it must be. Although we don't, because we've never experienced any sort of busyness like that.
After this conversation, I feel like we sort of do now.
We're going to sit here and probably reflect for a good half an hour after this. Yeah. There's a lot of information there.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, 100%. But yes, I'm sure our paths will cross again.
Indeed.
I hope so anyway. And yes, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you all very much. It's been my absolute pleasure.
Thanks,
awesome.
Hannah.
Right, we're going to call it then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.